Let me take you inside a courtroom where power spoke too loud, and truth didn't need to shout. A police lieutenant insulted a president, not behind closed doors but in front of the world, and what followed wasn't a fight, it was a quiet reckoning. No yelling, no slamming fists, just one man standing still while a system began to shake around him. You're about to witness what happens when silence becomes the loudest voice in the room. Ready? Good. Let's begin. A cold wind swept across the stone facade of the United States International Tribunal for Human and Civil Rights. Flags flapped with unease, one for the US, the other for the United Nations. Cameras clicked like gnats. Reporters whispered into handheld mics. Is that him? Ibrahim Traoré? A few frowned, skeptical. He wouldn't show. Not here. Inside, the courtroom was carved from marble and tension. Security guards stood firm along the walls, their eyes sharp. Every seat in the gallery was filled, silent, heavy. And then the doors opened. No entourage, no national seal, just a man in a dark suit, walking with the stillness of someone who'd known real war and didn't need to prove it. Ibrahim Traoré. He paused, scanned the room and gave a soft, brief nod to no one but the court clerk. Fiona Carver blinked, surprised. No one ever acknowledged her. He made his way to the witness stand. No applause, no camera flashes, just stares, some doubtful, some hostile, a few quietly hopeful. Then, the air cracked. Without invitation, Lieutenant Marshal Creed rose from the prosecutor's table, spine stiff, chin high. His voice was louder than the room deserved. We don't take orders from Africans in this courtroom. The words dropped like iron. Cameras swiveled, reporters froze mid-keystroke. Creed's lips curled into a smirk, eyes scanning the gallery for validation. But it didn't come. Not even a cough. Traoré didn't blink. His gaze held Creed's like glass, clear, unflinching, not angry. Just... He reached down, opened his leather case, and pulled out a single document. No sound, no grand motion. He placed it carefully on the desk. Steady hands, military hands. Hands that had signed treaties and buried comrades. A heartbeat passed. Then keyboards tapped like gunfire. Insulted in court exploded across Twitter. Fiona's fingers hovered above her keys. She had typed through years of trials, but never had a sentence frozen her like this. Her hands trembled. Her jaw tightened. Creed looked pleased. Reeve, the presiding judge, barely glanced up, his brow arched, expression flat. A man watching theater, not justice. But Traoré's silence thundered. It vibrated through the chamber, commanding more space than any shouted defense. As the camera focused on his hand resting over the top sheet, its title became visible. U.S.-Africa Bilateral Accountability Protocol. And then, a low music cue swelled beneath the silence. A courtroom wasn't supposed to have a pulse. But now, it had one. The tribunal clerk read the docket aloud with mechanical precision. Joint testimony hearing, Ibrahim Traoré, International Coordinator, regarding misconduct by law enforcement during Allied site inspections. Her voice was crisp, but the air in the room remained leaden. Traoré stood. His presence, though unarmed, carried the weight of iron. His voice, low, resonant, and undeniably African, cut clean through the stillness. I did not come here to be believed. I came to remind you, the law does not carry a passport. A few heads turned, some shifted in their seats. But at the judge's bench, Justice Douglas Reeve didn't even raise his eyes. He flipped through the file lazily, like leafing through an outdated magazine, and muttered with a thin, amused smirk. Let the foreign guest vent. A chuckle followed, too quiet for the record but loud enough for the room. Lieutenant Creed rose smoothly, the sheen of his uniform catching the courtroom lights. He walked up with a folded document and a performance-ready tone. This man is not a U.S. citizen. He has no standing to request adjudication under our domestic code. I move to dismiss all testimony on procedural grounds. From the audience bench, a young civil rights attorney began to stand, eyes lit with quiet rage, but before she could speak, Reeve waved her down without looking. You'll speak when invited. This isn't the United Nations." A cold silence fell, the kind that didn't ask for order, it demanded clarity. Even the guards who stood unmoving by the walls exchanged uneasy glances. Something had twisted, and everyone felt it. Reeve sat with the comfort of someone hiding behind rules. Creed wore the grin of a man who believed he had already won. And Traoré? He didn't flinch. He simply folded the dismissal order with steady hands, as if wrapping a lie that had finally exposed itself. His eyes scanned the room, not with anger, but a patience so deep it almost hurt to witness. He wasn't looking for allies. He was searching for awakening. On the screen behind him, a file appeared, faded, misfiled, rubber-stamped in red, declined for review. The music dipped, the shot tightened on Traoré's face. He didn't say a word. But somehow it felt like he had just judged them all. No one expected him to stand, not after his testimony was brushed aside, not after the judge dismissed him with a smirk, and Creed tried to erase him with emotion. But Ibrahim Traoré rose anyway. Slow, steady, deliberate. There was no protest in his body, only purpose. He reached into his case and pulled out a slim document sleeve. The camera lenses leaned in like hounds catching a scent. On the cover, a gold seal, 2 flags entwined, and bold black print. U.S.-Africa Bilateral Accountability Protocol, Article 12. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I'm not asking for privilege," he said. "I'm asking to be treated like a person under the law." And suddenly, it wasn't a foreign leader at a foreign tribunal. It was a man demanding the Constitution remember itself. He approached the podium, inserted a flash drive. The screen behind the judge flickered to life. A grainy security cam feed appeared, monochrome, time-stamped. A street corner at dusk. Marshal Creed stood with his back to the camera, facing a black officer in uniform. No sound yet, just body language. Aggressive, unrelenting. Then Creed's legs snapped forward. The kick landed hard, the victim stumbled. Creed's voice punched through the speaker. "Get this jungle dog off my street." Someone in the gallery gasped. A chair squeaked. A reporter dropped their pen. The oxygen changed. At the clerk's bench, Fiona Carver's fingers froze mid-keystroke. Her lips pressed together, eyes widened. Wet, but holding. She had typed thousands of pages. But this one, she couldn't transcribe. Not yet. Traoré never looked at her. Never looked at anyone. His eyes stayed fixed on the screen, as if telling the room, "Look at me. Look at this. Look at who you are." Nobody moved. Not the judge, not the attorneys, not the guards. What echoed wasn't the audio. It was the reality. When the footage ended, the silence stayed. No murmurs, no shifting. Just a courtroom no longer holding a trial, but holding its breath. Traoré returned to his seat. And for the first time, it was the law itself that felt cross-examined. The room was still holding its breath. After the video, no one spoke. No one dared. It was as if the air itself had turned solid, waiting for someone to crack it open. Ibrahim Traoré reached into his case again, slower this time. He pulled out a second file, thicker, worn at the corners, stamped in red. Internal investigations, 43 complaints. The room didn't gasp, but it listened harder. Traoré flipped it open, reading just loud enough for the silence to carry his voice. Officer George Randall, jaw broken after refusing to conduct a warrantless search. Officer Elisa Tran, reassigned after declining to falsify a report. He turned page after page, every entry ended the same. Closed, no disciplinary action. That was when she moved. Fiona Carver rose, quietly, almost like she didn't mean to. Her hands trembled around a faded folder. The courtroom turned, sensing something shift. Her voice cracked on the first word. "I have an internal memo." She looked down at the paper, then back up, eyes locking not with Traoré but with Reeve. He called African delegates propaganda pawns. I kept a copy, I didn't know why. Her lip quivered, but her spine didn't. "No, I do." Reeve froze. The judge's hand hovered over the bench as if to stop time, but authority no longer followed his command. Creed stood up, half in defiance, half in panic. His smirk gone, replaced by silence and sweat. Then the back door opened. Agent Natalie DeFord stepped into the room, flanked by 2 officers. Her badge glinted beneath courtroom lights. She didn't hesitate. "Lieutenant Marshal Creed," she said, her voice cutting clean through the air. "By the authority of the Department of Justice and under international accountability statutes, you are hereby suspended." The officers approached. Creed stumbled back, stammering, "You don't know who I am?" DeFord leaned in, almost softly. "We do, and we're not afraid." The cuffs clicked shut. Someone in the gallery sobbed. A veteran rose, hand to heart. Even the reporters paused, too stunned to type. Reeves sat there, wordless as the balance of power slipped from his grasp. And as Creed was led away, shouting, the room didn't watch a man fall. It watched something much bigger begin to break. The echo of the handcuffs hadn't faded when the room slipped into a quiet chaos. People whispered, reporters shuffled papers, guards exchanged unsure glances. Cameras zoomed in on Justice Reeve, who sat frozen, not with authority, but with exposure. His gavel struck the wood once, not firm, not final, just a signal of surrender. "This hearing is now suspended," he murmured, voice cracked, "and will be transferred to the International Council for review." He didn't look up again. The robe on his shoulders no longer felt like power, just fabric. Ibrahim Traoré rose without a word. He adjusted the button of his jacket slowly, with no urgency. Then, step by step, he walked down the center aisle. The crowd parted, not by command but by instinct. Some nodded, some placed a hand to their chest. No applause, no chants, just quiet reverence. The photographer scrambled, microphones angled in from every direction. Not a single word escaped his lips, not a glance toward the cameras. Only forward motion, forward truth. His shoes struck the marble tile with a calm rhythm, every footfall a reckoning. This building had tried to shrink him. Instead, he walked taller. Outside, the late afternoon sun bathed the steps in a soft gold. The crowd buzzed, held back by barricades and officers. Then, from just behind the line, a small hand lifted. Malik James, 15, in a wrinkled school shirt, looked up with eyes older than they should have been. "What do you do," he asked, barely above a whisper, "when they see you as less?" Traoré stopped. He knelt, one knee to stone, eye level with the boy. Gently, his hand rested on Malik's shoulder. "You don't speak louder," he said, steady and low. "You stand straighter, and let the silence shame them." The cameras caught it. Not the hug, not the handshake, just the words, just the stillness. A young mother in the crowd clutched her child, tears streaking her cheeks. A veteran raised his hand in salute. Online, 10 seconds of quiet spread faster than any speech. Traoré turned again, walked into the light, never looked back. And behind him, the world started to listen. By morning, the headlines had already changed. CNN, Channel 8, MSNBC, they all ran it as breaking. Justice walked in and didn't flinch. The footage of Traoré's quiet exit and his whispered reply to a boy on the courthouse steps played on a loop. Twitter erupted. Justice walked in, Traoré truth, Creed suspended. The silence that had filled the courtroom now roared through every feed, every scroll, every shared post. No one needed commentary. The truth had spoken for itself. Under the glare of a modest podium outside the courthouse, Fiona Carver faced a wall of cameras. Gone was the courtroom blazer. In its place, a soft gray sweater, sleeves rolled up. She looked not like a whistleblower, but like someone finally breathing. "I used to type lies into the record," she said. "Now I'd rather write truth into the world." She handed in her resignation. Hours later, Liberty Audit, a non-government watchdog, confirmed her as their newest legal analyst. Justice Douglas Reeve, once untouchable, sat alone in his office when the federal summons arrived. He didn't speak, didn't flinch, just stared at the envelope like a mirror held too close. The cameras outside his window didn't matter anymore. The robe on his chair, still hanging, looked heavier than ever. And somewhere across town, in a classroom lit by the pale Virginia sun, Malik James was staring at a blank page. Then, with slow strokes, he began to write. Title: No one is small when they carry the truth. His handwriting wobbled. The letters weren't perfect, but they were his, real, and the weight of them could move mountains. Back at the tribunal, the echo of the crowd had long faded. Ibrahim Traoré walked alone through the marble hallway. No guards, no flashbulbs, no echoing applause, just the sound of soft light against stone, and the sense that something larger had been left behind. He didn't stop to look back. He didn't have to. The message had been delivered. The silence had been heard, and a system once deaf to its own failings had finally, quietly, started to listen. Sometimes justice isn't served, the final frame read. It simply arrives. And for those watching, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of everything that finally felt possible. Justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it comes quietly through stillness, through presence, through the courage not to shout but to stand. What defines us isn't how loud we speak, but how deeply we hold the truth when no one wants to hear it. In a world full of broken systems and louder lies, silence, when rooted in dignity, can be the most powerful answer of all. Thank you for walking this path with us. If this story moved you, challenged you, or made you think, share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started.